Yo, episode 2. I'll name this show later. Look at us. I'm starting to think I'll name this show later could work as the name of a show. Is that too on the nose? I feel like that's a thing. I feel like someone's already got a show with a pretty similar title, but I just can't really figure that out right now. Welcome back, day 2. No long drawn out intro today. No get to know me. No 15-minute video. We're just going to get right to the goods. As you can see, we got 3 pretty interesting topics today. Tuesday, January 2nd. RJ Barrett made his Raptors debut last night. It's got me thinking, right? If you're a young Canadian kid watching the Toronto Raptors, how cool must it be to turn on the TV and see a Canadian in the starting lineup? You know, I'm 26 years old. I'm from Toronto. I've watched the Raptors for a long time. I'm not a Raptors fan, but I've been sitting here trying to think about when was the last time that there was a Canadian in a really prominent role when it came to the Toronto Raptors, right? You have Chris Boucher and you have a guy like Corey Joseph, but those are bench pieces that were able to make their own impact, right? We have a guy like RJ Barrett, 3 more years under contract. He's only 23 years old, right? It was hard for me to wrap my head around him being so young because, you know, he was at Duke. It feels like forever ago. But these guys, they come out after 1 year in college and they're just so young, you know? So had you asked me a week ago, I would have told you RJ Barrett was probably 26, 27, a little bit older. He's 23 years old. And the Raptors, you know, people want to give them guff for a bunch of stuff, but they can develop talent. And RJ Barrett definitely has talent. And I think there's an opportunity here for him to really shine in Toronto and lead this team through a troubling time for the franchise where they're just middling, right? And when you're middling, you need to give fans a reason to turn the TV on. And now all of a sudden there's a Canadian in the starting lineup. And I just think that this could have a ripple effect on Canadian basketball in a way that was a little similar to Vince Carter, right? We saw the Vince Carter boom in the next generation of kids that got to grow up watching Vince Carter. And maybe RJ Barrett can have a little similar impact, right? I'm just trying to think, if I was a 10-year-old kid and I was watching a Canadian starting on the Toronto Raptors, maybe I would pick up a basketball. I'd maybe be a little bit more inspired to go work on my jumper a little bit more. So shout out to RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly on their Toronto Raptors debuts. I really hope this works out for RJ. I think it's an incredible opportunity for a Canadian kid to play on the Toronto Raptors, and I hope it works out. I hope it works out for both sides. And as an aside, Knicks fans are going to love OG Anunoby. He's everything that the team needs. He's going to fit their identity perfectly. He's going to play defense, shoot corner threes. I really think that's going to work, and we got to keep this thing moving. So we're going to move it on to the second topic of the day, which is college football. College football just never disappoints. You know, we had the Rose Bowl on Monday, the Sugar Bowl Monday night. You get Bama, Michigan at the Rose Bowl. It feels like it doesn't get much more iconic than that when it comes to college football. And then you get a banger of a game. Game goes to overtime, comes down to 4th and goal. Alabama has a bad snap and the game ends, right? A little unfortunate. Hand up. I was one of the people that ran to X right after the game and called it a poor play call. Looking at it after the fact, it seems like it was an RPO that Bama had a pretty good look to have a screen out to their running back for him to just take it in. It was a poor snap. Milroe had to abort it and just try to make good on a shit sandwich, and it didn't work out. So tough way for Bama's season to end. But the main story is the Sugar Bowl, right? The Sugar Bowl was insane. And Washington, Texas, a great back and forth game. And none of it is going to matter because the last 45 seconds of the game were maybe the most chaotic form of football that I've seen all year, you know. And it's just a prime example of why you cannot turn off sporting events before they finish, right? That game was over. It was completely done. Washington gets the onside kick. Texas only has 2 timeouts. They can milk almost all the clock, and college football happens, right? We saw it earlier in the year with Miami running plays when they didn't have to, and they fumbled, and it leads to a loss. And now on Monday, Washington runs 1 play too many, and their running back gets hurt. It stops the clock. They punt it to Texas. They run into the returner, and everything started to seem like it was going south. Texas started hitting big plays, and before you know it, they're down at the 10-yard line taking shots at the end zone, right? And the game was over. People turned the TV off. The buddies I was texting with watching the game, they all went to bed, and they almost missed it. We almost had one of the craziest endings to a college football game ever. And I bet you a large portion of people that were watching that game missed it because Washington recovered the onside kick and the game was over. It pretty much was. Texas should have gotten the ball back with 10 seconds left at their 10-yard line. Instead, they got it with like 50 at the 40, So these college coaches, man, you got to tighten up. You got to tighten up. When you get in these big spots, the play calls have to be perfect. And don't be afraid to take a knee. That's my biggest thing. Don't be afraid to take a knee and just let that clock run. The clock is your best friend. Let the clock run. Okay, finally, we're going to wrap it up with some golf talk. PGA Tour season starts on Thursday with the Sentry in Hawaii. There's one name for me that jumps off the board early in the week. I haven't done a ton of digging, but my first click would be Wyndham Clark, 55-1. The big thing that we know about this golf course is that driving accuracy doesn't exactly matter. You have really big, wide, undulated fairways, and a guy like Wyndham Clark, who is 5th on the tour in club head speed last year and 12th in driving distance, but 156th in driving accuracy. This course seems like it suits perfectly for him, almost like LACC, right, where he could just let it wail off the tee. Where it goes, it doesn't really matter. He's going to get out there somewhere, find his ball, have a chance to put it on the green and put his elite putting skills to the work. He was 26th in strokes gained putting last year, 29th in strokes gained approach to the green. And he's a guy that I see him being very motivated in a setting like this. He's around a bunch of winners, and I think Clark wants to prove himself that he belongs, right? He was a Ryder Cupper. He's still not really getting the respect that I think he deserves. He won 2 times last year. And it wouldn't shock me to see him back in the winner's circle again this year. And it wouldn't shock me to see him win the Sentry. So at 55-1, that is definitely going to be something that I'm betting on this week. And 2 golf futures that I'll talk about very quickly before we wrap up today are 2 picks to win the Masters, Victor Hovland and Will Zalatoris, right? Victor Hovland's pretty self-explanatory. Probably the best player in the world right now who hasn't won a major. Victor Hovland, we've seen just a total boom from him in the last, let's call it 8 months in particular. It felt like a slow burn, a slow rise for Victor for a couple of years, and then 2023 he just went nuclear. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to pull out any wins at majors. I think that changes in 2024, and there's no better place for him to start than Augusta, where he was the low-am a couple of years ago, and he's been in contention a couple times here as well. And then Will Zalatoris, 10 majors for Will Zalatoris, 6 top 10s, 2 appearances at Augusta, T2 and a T6. Last year he had to withdraw pretty early in the day with a back injury, so he didn't tee it up in last year's event. But he's 44-1, and in my opinion, if Will Zalatoris is on the property at Augusta and going to play in the tournament, at 44-1, it's an auto bet. The last we saw him was at the Hero. It was his first appearance back from his injury. It didn't look pretty. The ball striking didn't look great. The putting, he's experimenting with some type of long putter. That didn't look great either. I'm hopeful he's got a couple months to get back to his old putting ways. I know you've seen the clips. The misses for him from within 2 feet, 3 feet are bad. But outside of that, I thought he was a pretty reasonable putter when it came to the PGA Tour standards. And his ball striking is elite. So I'm betting on Will Zalatoris to get himself right over the next couple of months. And I'm hoping that 44-1 number gives me some value by the time the Masters come around, because I do think he's one of the game's elite players. And I do think that the U.S. team missed him at the Ryder Cup this year, and I think he's going to be on the President's Cup, and I think that's something he's motivated to do, right? The world of golf moves so quickly, and players rise and fall so quickly, that I think a guy like Zalatoris wants to come out and prove to everyone that he's still one of the top dogs in this sport. Despite only 1 win on his resume, he is just a major championship type player. So I'm very happy to take Zalatoris at 44-1, and I'll get into some more futures as we keep it moving. But for today, that's going to do it, right? Day 2, episode 2. Energy levels are fluctuating. I won't lie. It's early in the morning. I don't think I've been out of bed this early in the morning in quite some time. So appreciate this project keeping me busy, keeping me motivated, and keeping the hustle alive. So If you're watching this video and you made it this far, I appreciate your click. I appreciate your view. Feedback is always welcome. And, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.